The lunchtime rush at a small-town KFC was in full swing. Families chatted over chicken buckets, and the smell of crispy fries filled the air. At a corner booth sat the Parker family: James, a hardworking mechanic, his wife Laura, a schoolteacher, and their 10-year-old daughter Mia. They were celebrating Mia's perfect math score with her favorite treat, extra crispy chicken. Just as James was about to pass the mashed potatoes, the restaurant's door opened. In walked none other than President Donald Trump, accompanied by two Secret Service agents. The chatter stopped for a moment. People froze, phones half raised, eyes wide. Trump wasn't giving a speech or surrounded by cameras. He looked almost casual. A simple suit, no tie, just an ordinary man walking into a fast food place. He nodded politely at the stairs and went to the counter. Mia whispered, "Dad, is that really him?" James smiled awkwardly, unsure what to say. Laura nudged him. "He's just a person. Let's not stare." But something in Mia's eyes showed curiosity and courage. As Trump waited for his order, she slid out of the booth, clutching a biscuit in her hand. She walked right up to him and said, "Hi, we have plenty of chicken. You can sit with us if you want." The Secret Service tensed, but Trump chuckled. "That's very kind of you, young lady. What's your name?"
Mia.
"And my mom says sharing food is the nicest thing you can do." He looked at her, then at her family. For a moment, it seemed like he might politely decline. But then he smiled. "You know what, Mia? I'll take you up on that." The room's whispers grew louder. Nobody knew this lunch would change everything. Trump slid into the booth beside James, shaking his hand firmly. Laura was still in shock, but she quickly recovered, offering him a paper plate. Mia beamed as if she had just invited Santa to dinner. "So, what's the celebration?" Trump asked, opening a packet of honey mustard. "Mia aced her math test," Laura replied. "That's impressive," Trump said. "Math is important. Keeps you sharp, and it's a language everyone understands." James, though respectful, couldn't hide his curiosity. "Sir, with all due respect, why here? Why KFC in a little town like ours?" Trump chuckled. "Sometimes, James, you just want a good piece of chicken without all the cameras. Life doesn't always have to be fancy." Mia giggled, offering him a biscuit. "These are the best part." Around them, customers whispered, snapping discreet photos. Some were surprised to see him so relaxed, dipping fries and mashed potatoes. Others were curious if this was a publicity stunt. But Trump's eyes stayed focused on the Parkers, listening intently to their stories about small-town life, school events, and the struggles of keeping a business afloat. He didn't seem in a hurry to leave. Instead, he looked like a man who hadn't had a normal lunch in years and was enjoying every second. By the time the first bucket was empty, the Parkers realized they weren't just sharing food. They were sharing something far more important.
Time.
As the plates piled up, Trump leaned back. "Tell me something. What's the hardest thing about living here?" James sighed. "Well, I work 2 jobs to make ends meet. Laura teaches at the elementary school, but pay's not great. Prices keep going up. Feels like we're always one paycheck away from trouble." Laura nodded. "The kids at school, some don't even have lunch money. We try to help quietly, but there's only so much we can do." Trump listened without interrupting. His usual commanding tone was replaced with genuine curiosity. Mia, sensing the seriousness, added softly, "Sometimes Mom packs extra sandwiches for my friends. She says no kid should be hungry." Trump looked at Laura with a rare softness. "That's a good heart you have. The world needs more of that." The conversation deepened. James spoke about rising rent. Laura shared how the school's art program was about to be cut. Trump took mental notes, asking pointed questions like, "How many kids in the school?" And "What does it cost to keep the art program?" For a moment, it didn't feel like they were speaking to a president. It felt like they were speaking to a neighbor who cared. By the time they refilled their drinks, Mia was explaining how she wanted to be a teacher like her mom, but also a scientist on weekends. Trump chuckled. "Aim high, Mia. You can be both." The family had no idea that this simple conversation was planting seeds for something much bigger. Word spread quickly. By the time Trump's second bucket of chicken arrived, a small crowd had formed outside the KFC windows. People pressed their faces against the glass, phones up, trying to capture proof. Inside, Trump seemed unfazed. He asked James about the local economy, Laura about her students, and Mia about her favorite books. But then an older man approached the table, a retired veteran named Carl, who recognized Trump from his days on TV long before politics. "Sir," Carl said, "I don't agree with everything you say, but I respect you being here. That's rare." Trump stood, shook Carl's hand, and invited him to join. Soon the booth was full and nearby tables pushed closer to hear the conversation. Laura noticed something unusual. Trump wasn't talking about himself. He was asking about them. Every person who joined shared a piece of their life. Job struggles, medical bills, small victories. Mia tugged his sleeve. "Do you always listen this much?" Trump smiled. "The smartest people are the ones who listen more than they speak." It wasn't the answer she expected, but it stayed with her. What nobody knew yet was that Trump wasn't just listening, he was planning. As laughter mixed with the hum of chatter, Mia suddenly asked, "If you could change one thing about the world, what would it be?" Trump paused, the question hanging heavy in the air. "One thing," he repeated, glancing at Laura and James. "Yes," Mia said. "Just one." After a long moment, Trump said quietly, "I'd make sure every kid had the same chance, no matter where they were born." It wasn't a campaign line. It was a personal answer. James studied him, wondering if those words came from years of seeing both wealth and poverty up close. Then Trump leaned toward Mia. "But here's the thing. Change doesn't just come from presidents. It comes from people like your mom, your dad, and even you." Mia grinned. "Then I'm going to help kids who don't have lunch money." Trump nodded. "That's how it starts." As he said it, Laura noticed something different in his expression, a mix of pride and resolve. While the family chatted, Trump excused himself to take a quick call outside. Through the glass, Laura saw him speaking softly, occasionally glancing back inside. When he returned, he picked up a napkin and wrote something on it. Sliding it toward James, he said, "This is the name and number of someone I trust. Call them tomorrow." James frowned. "Sir, what for?" Trump smiled. "Just do it. Tell them we had lunch at KFC. They'll know." Before James could press for details, Trump changed the subject, asking about Mia's school and whether she had enough books to read. Laura admitted the school's library was outdated with many torn or missing books. Trump nodded as if locking the information in his mind. The crowd inside had grown, yet the conversation at the booth felt strangely private. Trump didn't rush to leave, even as his security subtly signaled the growing attention. For the Parkers, it felt like he was no longer President Trump, just a man listening, caring, and quietly making mental notes. Eventually, Trump's security team insisted it was time to go. He stood, shaking hands with everyone at the booth. But before leaving, he knelt to Mia's level. "You keep being brave enough to talk to people, Mia, even presidents." She giggled. "Only if they like chicken." As laughter rippled, Trump turned to Laura and James. "Remember, call that number tomorrow." The Parkers waved as he left, the crowd outside cheering and snapping photos. On the way home, James admitted that was surreal. Laura agreed, but her mind kept returning to his words. She wondered if the napkin was just a polite gesture or something more. That night, she tucked Mia in and asked, "Why did you invite him to sit with us?" Mia shrugged. "Because he looked like he didn't have anyone to eat with. And Mom says, no one should eat alone." Laura kissed her forehead, realizing her daughter's simple kindness might have set something in motion far bigger than they could imagine. The next morning, James stared at the napkin over breakfast. "This could be nothing," he said. Laura pushed the phone toward him. "You'll regret it if you don't call." After a deep breath, James dialed. A woman answered. "Office of Community Initiatives. This is Karen." James hesitated. President Trump said to call. "We had lunch yesterday at KFC." There was a pause. Then Karen said, "Yes, Mr. Parker. We've been expecting your call. Within minutes, she explained that Trump had requested an immediate review of their town's school funding and local small business support. She asked specific questions about Laura's school, James' shop, and community needs. By the end of the call, she promised follow-up within days. James hung up, stunned. This is real. Laura smiled, but her eyes were wet. He was listening the whole time. By midweek, word of the KFC lunch spread like wildfire. Some people called it a publicity stunt. Others called it genuine. At Laura's school, teachers were buzzing. Is it true he's sending new books? One asked. James's auto shop had more customers than usual, all wanting to hear the story firsthand. Mia's classmates peppered her with questions and she told them, I just asked him to sit with us, that's all. But not everyone believed change was coming. The Parkers heard whispers like, politicians promise things all the time and don't get your hopes up. Still, Laura couldn't shake the feeling that something was in motion, something different. 2 weeks later, a truck pulled up to the school. Workers unloaded boxes stamped with the seal of the U.S. Department of Education. Inside were hundreds of brand new books, art supplies, and even tablets for the students. A letter accompanied the shipment for the students of Ridgewood Elementary. Never stop learning. Donald J. Trump. Laura stood in the library, tears threatening to spill as children squealed over colorful covers. Mia hugged a book to her chest. Mom, he remembered. Laura smiled. Yes, sweetheart. He remembered. That same afternoon, James received a call from Karen again. She informed him that the White House had arranged for a small business grant program to be introduced in their county with his shop as one of the first beneficiaries. James almost dropped the phone. Are you serious? Karen replied, Mr. Trump said you reminded him of the hardworking families that keep America running. He wanted to make sure you had the tools to grow. James hung up, looking at Laura in disbelief. This is life-changing. Local news caught wind of the story, and soon reporters were calling. A headline read, KFC lunch with Trump sparks change in small town. James was wary of attention, but Laura agreed to one interview, emphasizing that it all began because a little girl invited someone to share a meal. On TV, Mia shyly told the reporter, I just didn't want him to eat alone. The clip went viral, sparking online debates. Some dismissed it as a political stunt. Others called it proof that small acts of kindness could ripple into something big. One evening, a thick envelope arrived in the mail. It was embossed with the presidential seal. Inside was a personal letter from Trump thanking the Parkers for their hospitality and inviting them to visit the White House. Mia squealed so loudly the neighbors probably heard. James was stunned. From chicken at KFC to dinner at the White House. Laura laughed through tears. Life is unpredictable, isn't it? Weeks later, the Parkers boarded a plane for Washington, D.C. Mia pressed her face against the window, eyes wide. They were met by a staff member at the airport and taken to a hotel near the White House. That night, as they walked past the lit-up monuments, James whispered, I never thought we'd be here. Laura held his hand. Neither did I, but kindness brought us. The next day, they were escorted into the Oval Office. Trump stood behind the desk, grinning. Mia, my favorite dinner companion, he said, shaking James's hand and hugging Laura. They sat together, reminiscing about that lunch. Trump asked Mia if she'd started her Help Kids Without Lunch Money project. She proudly told him she had raising enough through bake sales to cover meals for 3 classmates all year. Trump leaned back. You see, one meal can lead to many. Midway through their visit, Trump called in a few aides and local reporters. He announced a new initiative inspired by a conversation over fried chicken aimed at increasing school funding for underprivileged districts. He credited the Parkers publicly, saying, sometimes the biggest ideas come from the smallest tables. James felt his throat tighten. Laura squeezed his hand. Mia simply smiled, unaware of the magnitude of what was happening. Before they left, Trump handed Mia a small box. Inside was a gold-plated bookmark engraved with, Keep reading. Keep dreaming. Laura's gift was a signed copy of a book on American history with a note for the teacher who gives more than she gets. James received a custom wrench set with his shop's name etched into the handles. These aren't just gifts, Trump said. They're reminders that what you do matters. When they returned to Ridgewood, the Parkers were greeted by neighbors, students, and even strangers who had followed their story. The school library was thriving. James' shop was busier than ever, and Mia's lunch project had expanded. Laura noticed something subtle. People in town were talking to each other more, offering help more freely. It was as if kindness had become contagious. Months later, Mia was invited to speak at a school assembly about her experience. Standing nervously at the podium, she said, "You don't have to be important to make a difference. You just have to invite someone to sit with you." Her words drew applause, but more importantly, they stuck with her classmates. Soon, students began starting their own projects, from coat drives to tutoring younger kids. The ripple effect was real. A year after that KFC lunch, the Parkers received another letter from Trump. It read, "Mia, I still remember your biscuit offer. You reminded me that leadership isn't about speeches. It's about sitting down with people and listening. Keep changing the world one table at a time." Signed, Donald J. Trump. Laura read it aloud, tears in her eyes. James put his arm around her. Mia just smiled. "I guess a lunch really can change